Hello, this is Gradye Parsons. I'm Stated Clerk of the Presbyterian Church USA, and this is the 5th episode of a series of podcasts on the future of the church, where we're talking together, I hope, about where the church is going and what are some of the trend lines we can see that others are noticing in the church. The next few podcasts will be focusing on some trends that the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life have discovered in their analysis of what's going on in the church. You can find these charts for yourself on that website if you Google Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life. The one I want to share with you today is the one that talks about where people are worshiping. What's the attendance kind of factor that's going on in the church? And of 100% of the people that were they surveyed, 37%, only 37%, attended one worship place exclusively. So that means out of 10 people that go to a church on Sunday or worship on Sunday, 4 out of 10 exclusively go to one church, and the other 6 have different places that they go. So someone may go to a Presbyterian church for its good worship, or they may go to another church for a Bible study during the week, or take their teenagers to even a different church for a youth group. People are picking and choosing not just their churches, but the pieces of their church that they actually want to participate in and actually want to live their life in. This has lots of implications for us because we tend to think of membership as someone belongs to a church and they worship in that church and they give to that church and they live their lives out in that church. But increasingly, this survey and others are finding that people really are kind of mixing and matching what are the different parts of different churches that they need in order to fulfill their spiritual life or their spiritual needs for their life. So how do we count members? Do we count the members that come to church on Sunday, or do we count the members that come to the potluck on Wednesday? Do we count the ones that tithe to a particular church? Do we count the ones that work on the committees of a church? This questions all those things that we have assumed basically in our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s models of the church. It questions all those kind of accounting numbers that we have looked at and that we have sort of assumed when we measure the health of a church. How many people belong, or is it how many people attend, or is it how many people participate in the life of that church? Another part of this survey that they found is where do people go to church? And still the vast majority of people go to traditional church buildings, but increasingly there's an increasing number of people that don't attend church in a regular church building. Now these are not just the storefront churches that maybe you're used to seeing, but these are people who are having church in their homes or in a fellowship hall, in a restaurant, maybe even theology on tap in a local bar. People who are finding ways to gather and share and live out their spiritual life, but not necessarily in a traditional church building. One of my colleagues is Jay Hudson, who is president of the Presbyterian Investment and Loan Program. And when he met with his colleagues recently, they discussed that the next generation is not really an asset-focused generation. In other words, our children, the next generation, are basically renters, and they're fine with being renters. And if they're renters, why should they belong to a worshiping community that owns a space? Now, this sort of challenges all of our assumptions about that nice red brick church that's bought and paid for with a mortgage burning ceremony and is there for our children and grandchildren. But it's just one of the indicators and the trends that people are measuring their worship space and they're valuing worshiping community more than just what a building looks like, more than exclusively what one particular faith looks like, but are looking at a very different kind of experience in the church. So we need to think about these things. What does it mean for us in our traditional middle-class Presbyterian church? What does it mean for us to have people that participate in part of our church life, but not all of our church life? And what does it mean for us to have people who are not looking necessarily as church buildings as a guarantee of church success, but more of the value and the richness of the community? So let's mull over these things, and next week we'll get together and continue our discovery of what these surveys are telling us about the future of the church. Thank you.